I never thought I'd live to hear the words that came out of my children's mouths that day. Dad, you're getting too old. We'll have to put you in a nursing home. You can't manage on your own anymore. At first, I laughed. I thought they were joking. After all, I had raised them with love, worked day and night, and given them everything I could. But when I looked into their eyes, I realized they weren't joking at all. My daughter crossed her arms and said, "It's for your own good. You don't belong in this house anymore." My son added, "Besides, this place is too big for you alone. We'll take care of the property papers. Don't worry. Don't worry." My own children, the ones I carried on my shoulders, the ones I sacrificed my dreams for, were now scheming to push me out of my own home. I felt my chest tighten as if a knife had been twisted inside me. The home I had built with their late mother, the walls that carried every memory of our lives, had suddenly become nothing but papers to them. That night, I sat alone in the living room, surrounded by silence. Their words echoed in my ears, "You don't belong here." But what they didn't know was that I had already prepared for this day. Years ago, after losing my wife, I had gone to my lawyer and drafted a will. A will that didn't leave everything to the children who only cared about wealth. A will that held secrets they couldn't even imagine. So when they plotted to strip me of dignity, to throw me into a home like some useless old man, I smiled through my pain. Because I knew the day would come when they would learn the truth, and when that day arrived, it was I who shocked them. I didn't just refuse the nursing home. I put them out of my will. My name is Khalid, and I am 71 years old. I have lived in the same house for nearly 50 years, a house I built brick by brick, with my own sweat, alongside my late wife, Aisha. Every wall in this house has a story. The living room still carries the echo of children's laughter. The kitchen smells sometimes remind me of Aisha's cooking. Even the garden out back with its crooked little swing feels alive with memories. I was not born rich. I grew up in a small village, the son of a schoolteacher and a seamstress. My parents believed in hard work and honesty, and I carried those values with me. I worked as an accountant in the city for decades, saving every penny, sacrificing luxuries so that my children could have a better life than I did. I had 2 children, my son, Imran, and my daughter, Sarah. When they were young, I adored them. Imran was quiet but clever, always taking things apart to see how they worked. Sarah was lively, with a laugh that could fill a room. Aisha and I poured every ounce of love we had into them. We made sure they studied in good schools, wore neat clothes, and never went hungry. When Aisha passed away 12 years ago, my world crumbled. For months, I lived in silence, but I told myself, "Khalid, you cannot fall apart. Your children still need you." I put on a brave face and carried on. Over the years, Imran married a woman named Nadia. She was beautiful, yes, but there was a sharpness in her eyes, a coldness that unsettled me. Sarah, on the other hand, married a businessman named Adil, who always spoke more about money than anything else. Still, I told myself that families change, children grow, and in-laws come with their own ways. I tried to accept it. I gave them all I could. I even helped Imran with the down payment for his new house and contributed to Sarah's wedding. But as the years passed, something shifted. The warmth between us began to cool. Phone calls became less frequent. Visits were shorter. Conversations were filled with tension, and sometimes I caught whispers. Quick glances exchanged between Imran and Nadia. A sigh from Sarah when I spoke about the old days. It was as if I had become a burden. One evening, while sitting alone in the living room, I stared at Aisha's photo and whispered, "Did we raise them wrong, or did wealth blind them?" I didn't know then, but the answer would reveal itself soon in a way that shattered me. It was a Sunday afternoon. Imran and Sarah had come over for tea, bringing their spouses along. I was happy at first. I thought maybe, for once, we would sit together like a family again. I brewed Aisha's favorite spiced tea, arranged biscuits on a plate, and set the table carefully, but the air felt heavy. Nadia, my daughter-in-law, looked around the house like she was inspecting it for flaws. She pointed at the chandelier and said, "This is too old-fashioned. Honestly, Baba, you should let us renovate, modernize the place. It would increase the value." I frowned. "This is not just a house, Nadia. It's a home. Your mother-in, Law picked that chandelier herself. She shrugged, unimpressed. Sentiment doesn't pay bills. I tried to ignore the sting of her words, but then Imran leaned forward, his voice low. Baba, we've been meaning to talk. This house. It's too much for you to handle. Why don't you let us manage it for you? Manage? I asked, confused. Sarah jumped in. Yes, Abba, you're not young anymore. We can take care of the property documents, taxes, everything. You won't have to worry. My stomach twisted. This wasn't about helping me. This was about control. About ownership. I forced a smile. I've managed this house for 50 years. I think I can handle it a little longer. Adil, my son-in-law, smirked. But why struggle? Just sign over the papers. We'll keep everything safe. Safe. That word struck me. Safe from whom? From my own children. I looked around the table at my son, who avoided my eyes, at my daughter, whose smile didn't reach her face, at their spouses, whose expressions were almost hungry. I realized something chilling in that moment. They didn't see me as their father anymore. They saw me as an obstacle. I ended the tea early, pretending I was tired, but that night I couldn't sleep. I sat in the dark, clutching the keys to the old wooden cupboard where I kept my documents. Among them lay a sealed envelope, one that could change everything. The confrontation happened a week later. Imran and Sarah came again, this time without notice. They walked in with determined faces, as if they were preparing for battle. Abba, Sarah began, her tone rehearsed. We've discussed it, and we think it's best if you move into a retirement home. My heart dropped. What did you just say? Imran placed a hand on my shoulder, but it didn't feel like comfort. It felt like pressure. It's for your own good. You can't manage alone. You'll have company there, professional care. I stood, anger rising in my chest. This is my home. Your mother's memories live here, and you want me to leave it behind. Nadia stepped forward. With respect, Baba, you don't belong here anymore. Big houses are for families, not for old men living alone. Old man. The words sliced through me. I looked at Sarah, hoping for some compassion, but she nodded in agreement. It's what's best. Don't fight us on this. For the first time, I saw them not as my children, but as strangers. Strangers who wanted me gone. I didn't shout. I didn't argue. I simply sat back down, my hands trembling. If that is what you think of me, I said softly, then maybe I don't belong to you anymore either. Their eyes flickered with surprise, maybe even guilt. But they said nothing. They simply exchanged glances and left, whispering as they walked out the door. When the silence returned, I felt a deep ache inside me. But beneath the ache, something else stirred resolve. I walked to the cupboard, pulled out the sealed envelope, and held it in my hands. It contained the will I had drafted years ago with my lawyer, Mr. Rashid. My children thought they were clever, plotting behind my back. But they had no idea. The power was still in my hands. If there was one thing I feared after that confrontation, it was the influence of my children's spouses. Nadia and Adel had never cared for me, not really. They cared for what I had. A few days later, I visited Imran's house at his invitation. I thought perhaps he wanted to reconcile, to apologize, but the moment I sat down, I knew I was wrong. Nadia came into the living room carrying coffee and set the cup down with a sharp clink. Baba, she began, we've been discussing things. You're alone most of the time. It's not safe for you. A retirement home isn't a punishment. It's protection. I raised my eyebrow. Protection from what? My own shadow. She gave a thin smile. You misunderstand. What we mean is, you're vulnerable. What if you fall? What if you forget to lock the doors? These things happen to old men. The way she said old men, it was deliberate, almost cruel. Imran shifted uncomfortably but said nothing. I looked at him, searching for my son inside those eyes, but all I saw was silence. Then Nadia added, besides, this house of yours, such property shouldn't lie idle. A place like that could be developed, rented, or even sold. Think of the money. So there it was, not even sugar, coated anymore. I put my cup down and stood. Nadia, I am not a business venture, and my home is not idle. It is alive with memories. Her lips tightened, but she didn't argue further. As I left, I heard her mutter under her breath to Imran, He's clinging to things he doesn't even understand anymore. We need to act before it's too late. Her words stayed with me like poison before it's too late. What did she mean? It was a Thursday afternoon when Imran showed up at my door. He looked nervous, carrying a brown envelope. "Abba," he said carefully, "I just need your signature on something. Routine paperwork, nothing serious." He laid the papers on the table. My heart thumped as I scanned the first page. It wasn't routine. It was a transfer of property rights, my house, my land, my security into his name. I looked at him sharply. "Do you think I am blind?" Imran flushed. "Abba, it's just for convenience. If anything happens to you, the paperwork will be smoother. You won't have to worry." I slammed my hand on the table. "You want me out? You want this house? Don't lie to me." For a moment, I saw the boy I once raised flicker in his expression. But then it was gone, replaced by the coldness of a man corrupted by greed. He sighed. "Abba, be reasonable. You're old. You won't be here forever. Why not make things easier for everyone?" I leaned forward, lowering my voice. "I will never sign these papers. Not today. Not ever." Imran's jaw tightened. He snatched the documents back, muttering, "You'll regret this stubbornness. Don't make it harder than it needs to be." He stormed out, slamming the door so hard that Aisha's photo frame rattled on the wall. I rushed to steady it, whispering, "I won't let them take what we built." That night I called my lawyer, Mr. Rashid. His calm voice steadied me. "Khalid Sahib, don't sign anything and keep that will safe. They think they are clever, but we'll be wiser." I nodded to myself. For the first time, I realized this wasn't just about a house. It was about dignity, about the life I had built. It happened on a quiet night. I had gone to visit Sarah, hoping to remind myself that at least one of my children still cared. She had invited me for dinner, but when I arrived, I sensed tension. Adil was there, speaking in hushed tones. After dinner, while Sarah was in the kitchen, I excused myself to use the washroom. On my way back, I paused because I heard voices coming from the study. I shouldn't have listened, but something in me told me I needed to hear the truth. Adil's voice was low but sharp. "Once he's in the nursing home, the house is as good as ours. We can sell it and split the profit. The land alone is worth millions." Sarah's voice followed, hesitant. "But Abba, he's still alive. It feels wrong." Adil scoffed. "Wrong? He's just an old man holding on to bricks. You want your daughter to grow up in comfort, don't you? This is our chance." My heart sank as I realized my daughter wasn't stopping him. She wasn't defending me, she was listening. I backed away quietly, my legs trembling. Once outside, I leaned against the wall, struggling to breathe. My children weren't just disrespecting me. They were planning my erasure. That night, I sat at my desk, pulled out the sealed envelope, and placed it in front of me. Inside was the will that none of them knew about, a will that could crush their schemes in an instant. As I ran my fingers over the edges of the envelope, I whispered, "You want me in a nursing home. Fine. But when you hear what I've written in here, you'll realize you lost more than a house." The final straw began with what was supposed to be a family gathering. Imran had invited me to his house for dinner. He said, "Abba, it will be nice to eat together like old times." For a moment, I allowed myself to hope. Maybe my children were softening. Maybe they realized how harsh they had been. When I arrived, the table was set beautifully. Nadia hovered in the kitchen, and Sarah was already there with Adil. The grandchildren played in the living room, their laughter innocent, untouched by the greed of their parents. We sat down to eat. At first, the conversation was light. Imran spoke about his work. Sarah showed me photos on her phone. For a brief moment, I felt normal again. But then, as the food was served, Nadia spoke. Her words dropped like poison into the air. "Baba, you really should think about moving. You can't even cook for yourself anymore, and look at you, coming here with that old coat. People might think we neglect you." I froze, the fork halfway to my mouth. "This coat was a gift from your mother-in-law," I said quietly. Nadia smirked. "Exactly. It's ancient, just like everything else you own." There was laughter, not from everyone but from Adil. Even Imran chuckled weakly, trying to hide it. Sarah didn't laugh, but she didn't defend me either. The humiliation burned through me. My own children laughing at me like I was some relic, some useless old man. I put my fork down and said nothing. I didn't want them to see my tears. Later, as I excused myself to wash my hands, I overheard Adel again. He whispered, "See how fragile he is. He won't last long. Once he's in the home, we'll handle the rest." My chest tightened, but I forced myself to remain calm. Because now I was sure of one thing. They didn't respect me. They didn't love me. They only loved what I owned. A week later, Sarah came to my house, unannounced. She looked restless, pacing as soon as she entered. "Abba," she began, "you know my daughter's wedding is coming. We want it to be big, grand, something people will talk about." I nodded, of course. Every father wants his child's wedding to be memorable. But tell me, what is it you're asking for? She hesitated, then said it plainly. "We need money, at least 10 million. You have it. Don't say you don't." My heart sank. "Sarah, 10 million, that's not a small amount, and I am living on my savings. What if I need it?" Her face hardened. "Abba, don't ruin this for me. Don't be selfish. This is my daughter's big day." Her words stabbed me. Selfish. I, who had given up my youth for her, who had sold my wife's gold to pay her tuition, who had skipped meals so my children could eat better. Now I was selfish. "Sarah," I said softly, "your mother would have wanted a beautiful wedding, yes, but not at the cost of dignity, not at the cost of family peace." She slammed her hand on the table. "You don't understand. People will laugh at us if the wedding isn't lavish. Don't you care about your own family's reputation?" I stood slowly, my voice trembling but firm. Respect is not bought with chandeliers and banquets. Respect is earned with love. If you think otherwise, then maybe you have forgotten the values your mother and I taught you. Sarah's eyes filled with tears, but not of guilt, of anger. "If you won't help, then stay away. Don't ruin my big day." She stormed out, leaving me alone again. That night, I sat with the envelope in my hands once more. My children had shown me their true faces. First, they wanted my house, now my money. What would be next? My dignity. I whispered to Aisha's photo. Maybe it's time they learn the truth. It happened one afternoon. I was fixing the old clock in the hallway when suddenly a sharp pain gripped my chest. I stumbled, clutching the wall, gasping for air. For a terrifying moment, I thought this was the end. I thought I would fall and never rise again. When I came to, I was lying on the floor, the clock ticking above me. Somehow, I dragged myself to the chair and sat down, shaking. The pain passed, but the fear lingered. I called Imran. His response was chilling. "Abba, maybe this is a sign. You should be in a nursing home where someone can watch you all the time. No concern." No rushing to my side, just another excuse to push me out. Sarah called later, her voice hesitant, but even she said, "Abba, you scared us. If something happened while you're alone, we wouldn't know. Maybe moving is best." That was the moment I knew they weren't worried about me. They were waiting for me to fall, to disappear, so they could collect what they believed was theirs. The next day, I went straight to my lawyer, Mr. Rashid. I told him everything, the humiliation, the papers, the demands, the collapse. He listened carefully, his eyes narrowing. Then, slowly, he smiled. "Khalid Sahib," he said, "they think they are clever, but they don't know about the will we drafted years ago. They don't know the surprises you left for them. If you wish, we can make it even stronger, airtight. They won't get a single brick of your house unless you allow it." I leaned back, breathing for the first time in days. "Do it," I said. "Make sure they learn what it means to betray their own father." Mr. Rashid nodded. "It will be done." And for the first time in months, I felt a spark of strength return to me. The call came from Mr. Rashid, my lawyer. "Khalid Sahib," he said, "it's time. I've prepared everything. But for this to work, we need them all present. Are you ready?" I took a deep breath. I've been ready for years. So invitations went out formal, almost ceremonial. My children and their spouses believed it was a routine family legal matter, perhaps the reading of a preliminary will after my health scare. I let them believe it. When the day arrived, I sat in the lawyer's office, my cane by my side, my heart steady. The door opened, and in came Imran with Nadia, followed by Sarah and Adel. They were dressed neatly, their faces serious, but their eyes betrayed them. There was eagerness, their greed barely hidden. "Abba," Sarah said, kissing my hand lightly, her voice dripping with forced sweetness. "You gave us such a scare. We just want to make sure everything is in order." Imran nodded. "Yes, Abba, it's for the family's future." The family's future. What they meant was their pockets. Mr. Rashid greeted them, his professional tone calm and controlled. Please sit. Today we will go over important matters regarding your father's estate. I ask for patience and silence until I am finished. The children exchanged quick glances but obeyed. As they settled, I looked at each of them, my son, my daughter, their spouses. Once upon a time, I would have given my life for them without hesitation. Now, I saw strangers who had forgotten blood ties, blinded by money. And yet, I felt no anger in that moment, only clarity. Mr. Rashid opened the thick envelope, adjusted his glasses, and began to read. Mr. Rashid's voice filled the room. This is the last will and testament of Khalid Hussein. I, Khalid Hussein, being of sound mind, hereby declare the following. The children leaned forward, anticipation written on their faces. Firstly, to my son, Imran, and his wife, Nadia. Nadia smiled slightly, ready for the windfall. I leave nothing. The room went silent. Nadia's smile froze. Imran's face drained of color. What did you just say? Mr. Rashid continued, unshaken. To my daughter, Sarah, and her husband, Adil. I also leave nothing. Sarah gasped, clutching Adil's arm. This must be some mistake. But Rashid's voice was steady, cutting through their protests. The entirety of my estate, including my home, land, and savings, is to be placed into a charitable trust, dedicated to supporting orphan children and widows. A trust managed under the oversight of my lawyer and one trusted friend. I glanced at them, my voice finally breaking the silence. That is my decision, chaos erupted. What? Imran shouted, standing. You can't do this, we are your children. Yes, Sarah cried, tears of anger in her eyes. You're abandoning us for strangers. I raised my hand, silencing them. My voice was calm, but firm as iron. Strangers, the orphans who will sleep with a roof over their heads because of this trust, they are not strangers. They are children, just like you once were, and maybe they will value what you did not. Adil slammed his hand on the table. This is insane. We counted on this. Do you know how much we've invested expecting my death? I cut in sharply. The room fell quiet. Yes, I know. Their faces betrayed them, shock, shame, fury. But not a trace of love. I stood slowly, leaning on my cane, looking at each of them. You wanted me in a nursing home. I said, my voice low but sharp. You told me I didn't belong in my own house, that I was just an old man in the way of your plans. Sarah whispered, Abba. We didn't mean. I raised my hand. No, don't. You meant every word. I turned to Imran. You brought me papers to sign, hoping I wouldn't notice. You called it convenience. Then to Sarah. You asked me for millions, calling me selfish when I said no. You said not to ruin your big day. Finally, to both of them, I said, and you all laughed at me, mocked me, dismissed me. You forgot who I was. I am the man who built the life you live today, and you tried to erase me. I leaned closer, my voice trembling with both pain and power. So I erased you. From my will, silence. The only sound was the ticking of the clock in Mr. Rashid's office. Their faces were pale, their eyes wide with disbelief. For the first time, they understood. They had lost not because I was weak, but because I had been strong enough to see through them. Imran collapsed back in his chair, muttering, No, this isn't fair. I straightened, gripping my cane with pride. Life is not about fairness, it's about respect, and you gave me none. So now, you will live with nothing. Mr. Rashid closed the will folder with a decisive snap. It is done. I turned to leave, and as I walked past them, I said softly, You put me in a nursing home in your hearts long ago, so I put you out of mine. The days after the will reading were quiet, too quiet. For years, my phone buzzed endlessly calls from Imran, messages from Sarah, requests for money, reminders for favors. But after that day, silence, not a single call, not a single text. At first, I thought perhaps they were in shock. But no, the truth was simpler. They had no reason to contact me anymore, no inheritance, no power over my future. In their eyes, I was of no use. Nadia posted on social media, complaining about ungrateful parents. Adil told his friends I had been manipulated. They painted themselves as victims, while I, the man who gave them life, was portrayed as cruel. But their words no longer pierced me. I had already faced the deepest betrayal. Gossip was nothing compared to that. Meanwhile, Mr. Rashid finalized the paperwork for the charitable trust. For the first time in years, I felt lighter, as if a burden had been lifted. My wealth, the fruit of decades of sacrifice, was no longer a chain tying me to the greed of my children. It was free, it had purpose. I visited the orphanage for the first time after the trust was announced. The children there ran to me with smiles, children who had no reason to love me, yet did so anyway. One little boy hugged my leg and said, "Baba, will you come again?" Tears welled in my eyes. That word Baba, spoken not from obligation, not from greed, but from genuine affection. It was the sweetest sound I had heard in years. Imran and Sarah tried everything. They stormed Mr. Rashid's office, shouting, demanding he overturn the will. He calmly told them it was legally airtight. They threatened lawsuits, but lawyers refused to take their case once they saw the ironclad clauses I had written. Next, they turned on each other. Imran blamed Sarah. "You pushed Abba too far with your wedding demands. You ruined everything." Sarah screamed back, "Me. If you hadn't tried to trick him with those papers, he wouldn't have suspected us." Their once united front cracked, exposing the raw truth. Their loyalty had never been to family, but to money. Without it, their bond collapsed. Meanwhile, financial reality hit them hard. Imran had invested recklessly, believing he'd soon inherit millions to cover his losses. Sarah and Adil had taken loans for their lavish lifestyle, certain that Abba will handle it. But now, there was no Abba to save them. Bank calls, debt collectors, property seizures, their perfect world unraveled piece by piece. I watched from a distance, not with joy, but with a heavy heart. They had chosen this path. I had not wanted revenge, I had wanted respect. But sometimes life teaches its lessons with a heavy hand. Nadia eventually left Imran, unable to tolerate the financial ruin. Adil distanced himself from Sarah when her debts became too overwhelming. The very spouses who once encouraged their greed abandoned them when the money dried up. It was then they realized I had not punished them. They had punished themselves. In the quiet that followed, I rebuilt my life. No longer tied to their demands, I spent more time with the trust, with the orphanage, with people who appreciated kindness without expectation. I taught the children to read, told them stories from my youth, and saw in their eyes the respect my own children had long lost. Sometimes, late at night, I wondered, had I failed as a father? Had I given too much or too little? Perhaps, but then I remembered, I had given them everything: love, shelter, education, opportunities. What they chose to do with it was no longer in my control. One evening, sitting by the window, I whispered a prayer. Not for wealth, not for health, but for peace, and for the first time in years I felt it. Weeks later, Sarah came to see me. Her face was pale, her eyes sunken, her voice trembling. "Abba," she whispered, "we were wrong." I looked at her, my daughter, broken, humbled. I felt no anger, only sorrow. "I never wanted your money," she said, tears spilling. "I wanted security. I wanted ease, but in chasing that, I lost you." I reached out, placing my hand on hers. "Child, you lost yourself. Money can return, but character, once gone, it is hard to rebuild." She wept silently, and for the first time, I held her not as a disappointed father, but as a grieving one. Imran never came. His pride was too strong, but I prayed for him still. A father's heart cannot stop praying, even when wounded. And so life moved on. In the end, I had no mansion full of children celebrating me, no grandchildren running through my halls, but I had peace, I had purpose, and perhaps that was more valuable than any inheritance. When people ask me now, wasn't it cruel cutting your children off? I answer simply, no. Cruelty was them putting me in a nursing home in their hearts while I was still alive. What I did was not cruelty, it was justice. And if my story has a lesson, it is this: love cannot be bought, and respect cannot be demanded. If your children value your money more than your life, then it is not you who is poor, it is them.